Welcome to another edition of the Show Me Hoops podcast, where I'm joined by one of my favorite players of all time, Kenyon Wright. And Kenyon, I'll just start this thing out by just saying thanks for taking a second to talk with your old coach. But, a quick story about you, and I've told this story before, not on this podcast, but when I coached you in high school, we won a state title when you were a junior. And we had a moment in the middle of that state tournament run. We were playing in the sectionals at Thayer. At Poplar Bluff. We're playing against Thayer.
Yep.
And we had a game plan because Thayer was so well coached and they were very deliberate and slow the game down. And we were a 2-2-1 press, team run and trap. And we could play man-to-man, but we had a really, really good press with that team. So what I told you guys before the game was we're going to play them man-to-man the first half, because they'll be ready for our press. Then we'll go in at halftime and we'll adjust. We're going to come out and press them. Yep. And to be honest, at the time, I was only 23, and I wasn't sure that would work, but I thought it would work. But I tell people this story. When I walked in a locker room at halftime and said, hey, here's what we're about to do, the way you looked back at me, you believed in me so much that you made me believe that I was right too. And I mean that. Like, I'll never forget the look that was in your eyes, like, man, this is about to work. That's really smart.
That's right.
And then, of course, your senior year, we got beat in a heartbreaker in the sectionals, and you hugged my neck and you whispered in my ear, you said, Coach, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And now you've got 3 state championships, and I've only got 2, and so, dang it, I want to be just like you. And but, I sure am proud of you, and you've had a great career. Now you're principal, you're an administrator over at Delta. And we're doing a big Final Four talk today, and I said I can't talk about the Final Four without talking to my man Kenyon Wright. So, what's your favorite memory? You've been 3 times. You've got the greatest coaching career of all time. You were the head coach for 3 years. You won 3 state titles. Like it's the best that's ever been done. So, what's your favorite memory of the Final Four?
Well, I always tell this story about, speaking of Charleston going to the Final Four. The last year when I had Jalen and Lorantis and those guys, Lamarcus and little squirts. We were real small that last year. I was at Scott Central. Didn't have a lot of big kids. I mean, we were 5'10" was the biggest kid we had. It started
right,
and we were playing in the state championship game. We won the semifinal game. We beat Glasgow, beat Nick Kropp's team there in the at the old Hearn Center. And then we got to play in, of course, the Missouri Arena the next game, and we were practicing. I always say that Charleston was up there that same year, too. And I always tell him Randy Thompson, was his assistant, longtime assistant there.
I remember Randy. That's right, yeah.
And I always say that he's the one that won a state championship that game. He won the state championship for us. And here's how. Well, we were practicing. You practice in a little practice facility they got that's right there outside the gym. The actual big part of the gym. Everybody gets like 30 to 45 minutes.
That's right.
Of court time there before that same day you play. You get about 30 to 45 minutes of court time. Well, Charleston was practicing before us, but before Charleston practiced, the team that we were going to play practiced before them. Which not knowing that, Charleston's right beside us, and we play Charleston and that kind of thing. I'm sure their coach didn't think nothing about it. But whenever they were playing there, they Drexel, who it was. But whenever they were playing, practicing, they went in there to practice, and Randy was kind of watching what they were doing, and he said he kind of watched how they were going to break our press, more or less. And they were, they had 6'10", 6'7". 6'6", they were big. And then they had a couple of good guards. And he said, all right, whenever I come in the gym there to kind of go over our stuff, we're just going to kind of do a little walkthrough before the game, because it was about 2 hours before the game whenever we did our little walkthrough. And they can't even come over here a second. I was all right, hey, what's going on, Randy? And he said, I'm going to tell you this. He said, here's what they're going to do. He said, they're going to try to break the press like this. He said, they're going to throw it throw it to the sideline, and then throw it over the top of you because you're so small, right to the big kid in the middle, and then just go down and shoot layup. He said that's all they practiced. That's all they worked on. He said they did it about 10 times in a row. He said that's all their coach was telling them to do. And he said I just wanted to tell you that. He said that'll help you. And so that's what I told our kids. I said, well, look, I said, here's what they're going to do. I said, if you'll steal that first pass, maybe the second pass, maybe the third pass, and come down and get layups off of it, I said they'll get out of it and they won't know what to do.
That's right.
And that's what they did. They,
right.
They tried to Antonio Johnson and Lorandis were kind of in the middle at the time. And when they threw that first pass, Lorandis got a finger on the ball and it went out of bounds. So we didn't steal the first pass. But that second time down the court in our press, we got set up in full court press. That second time, Antonio stole it, kicked it up to Lorandis, and he almost come down and almost dunked it. Got up on a layup and scored. And then after that, they just shook. It kind of shook them a little bit. And so they didn't know what to do because that's what their coach had told them to do. Their game plan was kind of thrown off. So that I always credit that win to him because if it wasn't been for that, we probably wouldn't have beat him. So
yeah,
but,
and
that's kind of my favorite memory about it.
Yeah, and it's really neat. You talk about being a pressing coach. I was a pressing coach. You're a pressing coach. I always tell people that, if you're going to be a pressing coach, I think if you can adjust one more time than they do. In other words, they got a way that they're going to break it. And if you can figure out which, like I always use the example of Bernie. Bernie did the best press breaker of anybody we ever played. When you were playing for me at Bell City, Bernie, Morris Carnes was coach at Bernie, really good coach. And Morris used to run this guy back up the middle. It was really hard to guard. But once we adjusted that to that one thing, did they have an adjustment after that? And I think that like what you're describing as a coach, being a pressing coach, you just have to figure out where are they going to break it. And then a lot of times if you can make them go somewhere else, it's really somewhere they don't want to go, or maybe to a ball handler they really don't want handler to get suppressed. And so then you've kind of got them. And so
it makes a difference. It does. And you look at too. I look at what the two teams that have made it up there. This Charleston and Hayti. In our area, have made it up there. They're man-to-man full court press teams.
That's right.
So they're going to guard you from one end to the other. Straight up man-to-man, try to keep, and put pressure on you. And, they're going to wear you out. And by the end of the game, they're hoping that your legs are a little tired and you make some mistakes at the end, throw the ball away, and they get some steals and, get a few easy points off of it. And if they do that and, they're in shape, then they'll be fine. If you can ever handle their pressure, then you got a chance. That's the tough part, is handling that pressure for a whole game.
and just the fatigue that it creates. It's a different kind of pressure like you're talking about, where you and I were zone trap presses. We're going to try to force you into an area of the floor and make you throw a pass you really don't want to throw, and we're going to try to score off of it. Like Ronnie Cookson is famous for saying, when we're on offense, we're trying to score, and when we're on defense, we're trying to score. And that's really the way we played. And whereas Charleston Hayti, like you're saying, they're more contain you, pressure you, make you work to get from one spot to the other. And it's just an accumulative effect that it has on the ball handler and on big kids too. I mean, it's hard on big kids because that makes them sometimes have to help handle the ball a little bit more than they would normally have to do. And so, what advice would you give our coaches? I mean, because we're talking to different coaches that are out there. I actually talked to Bryce Kemper, who's at Mid Buchanan this morning. I talked to him. Just different guys that are out there, different guys, like Aaron Bidwell. He's making his first trip up there. Now, when you made your first trip up there, you were making it with one of the all-time great teams to come out of Southeast Missouri with Bobby Hatchett and Otto Bubba Porter. You had a phenomenal team, and you had been an assistant coach there, so you had a familiarity with those kids and had been there with those kids. But you have a unique perspective. You have won a state title as a player for me. You won a state title as an assistant coach with Ronnie Cookson, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and you got to sit under him and learn. I'm not on that level, but I think I know a couple things. So I think you got to be around a couple really good coaches, and then you got to go yourself that first time. Like, what advice would you give to Coach Bidwell or any of the coaches that are listening to this that are going for the first time?
Well, I think the number one thing is don't change what got you there. I think that's a big part of it. A lot of coaches get up there and yeah, the officiating might be a little different from what it is down in Southeast Missouri, because they'll let you, put your hands on you a little bit more, and because everybody kind of does it down this way. Where, and this year being at Springfield, it's going to be a little bit different, but I think it'll be a lot of the same as Columbia, kind of the same officiating crews and things that they have. But don't change what you do and what got you there. Because if you go to changing what, your kids are used to and what they're, accustomed to doing and that's going to throw them off. They're not, you want to keep doing the same things that you've always done all year. That's what got you to the Final Four. You go to changing that, you go to doing something that you're not accustomed to. Kids aren't ready for that kind of thing. It's something you got to be, they're prepared. You're preparing them all year. And, you've done certain things all year, so keep doing those things. If you get beat doing what you do, that's just one thing. But, if you look at it and from that perspective, hey, we played this way all year. It's what got us here. If it happens and we get beat, then we get beat. But, we're going to give it our best doing what we do. So.
That's always the way I look at it. It's kind of like, like I told you guys when we went and the other groups when I've taken up there, you only get one shot at this thing, really.
Yep.
Like even if you're a junior and when you won it, you were a junior. There's no guarantee we're gonna make it back, or if we come back, we're not. Jason and CJ and Luke aren't going to be here. Brent's not going to be here. Those seniors are going to be gone. It's going to be a different team. So you get one shot at it with this group. Man, I'm not going to look back and regret later. Man, I wish we would have played them this way instead of this way. I'm not going to. I'm going to play like you said. I'm going to be more worried about what we do than what they do.
Exactly.
Because you get here and you're playing an unfamiliar opponent. They're from the other side of the state.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen a tape of them maybe or something like that, but you don't really know.
No, the tapes are deceiving. You can't always go off a tape. All you can get off a tape is, their offense, maybe their defense, that kind of thing. But you're not going to get speed. You're not going to get how big they are. You're not going to get that off of the tape. It's hard to tell.
You can't. That's exactly right. You just made a critical point. When you watch film, people look slower than they are on the court. If you go down there and stand on the floor with them and watch them, you're like, wow, these guys are bigger than I thought they were. Wow, they're faster than they looked on the tape. And the other thing about a tape that can be deceiving is you just saw what they looked like that night. So I've seen a tape before where you look at somebody and go, wow, like how are we ever going to beat these guys? They look phenomenal, but you just saw the best game they ever played is all you saw. And so, I think that you have to kind of be ready for that feeling out process early in the game, where like when I had Dom Johnson, the second time we went up there, Dom was a senior. They played us a jump defense, like a box and one type of triangle and one defense, whatever.
Yeah.
And, so we had to adjust early on. It's like, okay, they're making us play a funny way. Like we're not used to playing like this all the time, but we had seen it before. And so what we just said in the huddle, and you played with Dom, and Dom is the ultimate winner. He's unselfish. And so what Dom said in the huddle the first time we went in the huddle and they're leaving Randy and Zach open. He told them, get ready. And when the ball come out of his hand, what was Dom saying?
Shoot.
Hit that. That's right. That's right. And so, like you said, that's what we had done every day for 2 or 3 years. So it was nothing different. And so at halftime, Randy had hit like 5 threes and Zach had hit like 4 threes. And, it's like, y'all better try something else, And so, I just think you have to get into that. And then you also said something really important there about the officials. The officials that go to the state tournament are good officials. Yeah. But officials are working with guys they've never worked with.
Yep.
So that's a big thing. And then also, I don't like the way they evaluate the officials at halftime of games. I've never been a fan of that because it doesn't happen at any point during the season. They never do that. So, in other words, don't go in there and tell a guy at halftime, well, you better call it like this and you better call it like that, because he comes out in the second half and calls a completely different game. He's already calling with 2 strangers who he doesn't even know, And so I think that's hard on kids, like to get up there. And so as a coach, like you're saying, just be ready to adjust and kind of be looking for those kind of things. And so
and it's one of those things too. People say, well, you can't do the things you did back, in Southeast Missouri. But the trouble with that is, if kids can play defense, they can play defense. You just have to use your feet and remember to use your feet, not your hands. As long as they do that, as long as the kids are, as long as you prepare them for that and they're mentally prepared to do so and keep their hands off them a little bit more than maybe what they are here, they're going to be fine. It's just after they realize that, they're going to have to use their feet. If they're playing good defense all year using their feet, they're going to be fine.
That's right.
So it's not one of those things that it's like a major deal or anything. It's just something you got to be aware of, I think. And if you're just aware of that a little bit and you think about it and your kids are prepared for it, you'll be that much better off, starting that first game up there.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to tell one more quick story on you before I let you go. The year after you graduated high school, you came up one night. We were playing at Bloomfield in the Souder County tournament.
Yep.
You came up and sat on the stage with me. I was scouting the game. You sat up there and was talking to me. And I said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Are you busy? And you said, no, what's up? I said, come by practice. I want you to come and talk to the guys. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, oh yeah.
This? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you came to practice the next day. You were a freshman in college. But obviously you had played with all the guys that were on our team, Dom and Randy and Zach and Derek and all these guys you had played with. And so you came in the locker room that day, and I told you, I said, I don't know what to tell you to say to him, but we were just in a little bit of a rut. And I said, Kenyon, I just want you to go in there and just make them, give them that attack mindset back. And you said something to those kids that when I think about it, it still gives me the goosebumps. It's one of the best locker room talks I've ever heard in my life. But I'll never forget that you said to those guys, you said, I want you to close your eyes. And you said, do you remember what it was like when this guy hit a three and that guy hit a three and we stole the ball, we did this? And you said this to me. You said, and we were beating them and there was nothing they could do about it. Like, when you just got caught in that run, and I'll never forget this. When you were talking, all of a sudden, guys started picking their head up and opening their eyes. And I'll never forget the look that was in Dom Johnson's eyes. Like, I remember what that feels like to just be pummeling somebody, a good team, and there's nothing they can do about it. And it was like that one little talk. We come out the next night, we play unbelievable. We come out the next night, we beat Dexter, and we snapped their 48-game winning streak on that court, whatever it was.
Yep.
But that talk that you gave, man, I mean, it just springboarded that team, and they ended up winning the state tournament. So, again, one of my favorite guys I've ever coached. There's no way I would be where I'm at right now had we not crossed paths. So,
same here. So that's that's the thing about it, and that's what I enjoy about it, and the camaraderie and just the things I've been able to learn and that kind of stuff goes along with it. But you've always got to be prepared for what might happen. So
that's right. That's right. Well, I always love talking basketball with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Totally, yeah. Glad to do it, and I'm heading up to the Final Four. I'm sure I'll see you there.
Yeah, I'll be there. You owe me dinner or something, I'm sure.
I know. I think so. I'm probably right.
All right, but I'll see you up there.
Okay, see ya.
Okay, Kenyon. Bye-bye.